Hi, I'm Susan Garden with Robert Garden Art, and today we're doing acrylic. I'm going to visit Colorado because it's my favorite place, and I might make a simple little sketch. I'm going to put in a horizon line right here, and I'm going to have some trees right in there, and then a big old mountain, Long's Peak from Rocky Mountain National Park, one of my favorite spots. I'll start with a really cool blue because in higher elevations like Colorado, the sky is really bluer than it is here in Texas. So I'm going to put this blue on. Pretty phthalo blue. Now when you put it on, you don't want to go up the side of the mountain. I know it would be easier to do it that way, but it would look funny. The sky doesn't go around the mountain, it goes behind the mountain. Now as we come on up, I want to get even more vivid blue. There's less oxygen the higher you go in the sky, so that's why the sky is always bluer higher up. If you look out the window of an airplane, you can see how blue that sky is. And then I want to blend this as it comes into that color so that it doesn't make a line where it changes from the darker blue to the lighter blue. I'm working with just a simple tube acrylic. Let me show you what a tube of acrylic looks like. It's usually got a snap lid, which is great because you don't want it to dry out. You want to keep those lids on. Now down in below, I'm going to have a little lake right down in here. So I'm going to change brush strokes. To make that look more like water, I'm going to go down with a brush stroke. I'm going to put a little bit more blue in it and maybe even throw in just a touch of green just to give it some different flavor down here. Flipping the brush over, following the downstroke. The downstroke gives you a wet look, and that's going to be important when you're painting water. You want it to look different than sky. And it's a little darker usually too, just because it's somewhat in shadow and the depth of the water makes it dark. Okay, I'm not going to go all the way down to the canvas. And then I'm going to rinse my brush out. Kind of just leave it in the water, and I'll take a middle-sized flat bristle brush and come in with the color for the mountain. I'm going to use just a teeny little tiny touch of ultramarine blue, which is a warmer blue. Just a very small amount to make the cool snow-capped mountaintop. And I'm working with white. Titanium white is a really nice warm white. Reflects a lot of color because there's metal in titanium. So I'm painting kind of downhill. And then I'm going to do the opposite side of the mountain. So this is a very, very pale color mountain. But I'm going to add a touch more blue to do the shadowed side and a little tiny touch of my red-orange, cadmium red light. It's just going to give me a good shadowed side for the mountain. So it still looks like snow, but it looks like snow in shadow. I don't want to leave this hard line either, and mountains are kind of rough, so I'm going to have some areas where it looks like there's some little indentations. I'll go in with a little bit stronger purple for some of the deepest, darkest cast shadows on the mountain. Those are usually on the side far away from the light. Touch more blue in there. That red is strong, so be careful when you work with red or red-orange because it can be very strong, and we don't want to lose that cool sense of this distant mountain. Okay, now I've got that mountain in, just doing a few little touches to it to just kind of make it look rough and rugged. And then I'm going to come in and go back to my big brush, which I've rinsed out in water, and dry it off so it's not too wet. And I'm going to come in and paint some trees. I'll start with phthalo green and phthalo blue so I get a nice dark effect down here next to the edge of the water. I'm not going to go all the way to the water because I'm going to have a little land down there too. But this is a pretty blue green. It's a little more green than it is blue. Then as I come up, it's going to catch the light, so I'm going to put in some yellow ochre. Let that come in above this, right next to the mountain. Spreading that on. Reload your brush whenever you feel like you need a little bit more paint in it. This is an ordinary 8x10 canvas board. You could be painting on a stretch canvas too, that would be fine. Let me show you a way to do about 3,000 pine trees in one stroke. Now I'm right-handed, so I'm going to hold my brush this way. If you were left-handed, you just start on the opposite side. And I'm just gonna jiggle this brush up and down and make thousands of treetops in no time. I call this stroke the EKG stroke. Can you see why? An EKG machine is what measures your heartbeat. And you've probably seen one of those machines before, and as your heart beats, this little needle moves back and forth. So I'm getting that effect with this. I might even do a few trees in the water. What do you call that when you see trees in the water? Reflections, of course. Don't call them a shadow, because there's a big difference in a shadow and a reflection. I'm leaving a little blank space back in there because I'm going to put in some land. And for the warmer land, I'm going to use cadmium yellow mixed with a little bit of green. This will go right in here next to the water. That contrast between that lighter color and the darker trees and then the dark water again looks really good. I want it to look like grass, so I'm going to push it up. How am I doing on time, camera person?
So far.
All right, got plenty of time for detail. So once I get this back covered, then I can start thinking about doing more detail. So I'm going to do some land up close. So right here in the front, I'm going to put that on with a little bit more yellow. This is yellow and phthalo green, cadmium yellow. Spread that on, putting it on kind of thick. That's what I like about acrylics, is that you can build up the level of paint you use, and anytime you're thicker, it's going to create a little bit more texture. Now I'm going to pick up the painting right here just and tilt it on its edge so you can see how I'm doing this brush stroke. I'm going to push up on the brush and make this grass look more textured, like it's growing up. If I turn the brush on its narrower side, I can even get individual blades of grass and weeds and all kinds of things growing up in front of that dark water. The contrast looks really nice. Now I'm going to clean the brush out one more time and just dry it off, because you always have too much water on your brush after cleanings, and you don't want to put a lot of water in acrylic. You don't want to thin it down, or you can make it look like watercolor. I'm going to go across the water now. That's the other stroke that's important in painting water. The downstroke makes it look wet. The cross stroke makes it look flat. I'm going to put just a little bit of white on the brush and kind of move this around just a little bit. So it looks like maybe there's some trout swimming out there in the lake. Just little touches. Okay, now I'm going to do a double load. I want to show you this because this is such a time saver and lots of fun. I'm going to put burnt umber on one side of this brush. Let me hold this palette up so you can see. I've got burnt umber on one side with a little blue, and the blue is an opposite to the brown, so it kind of grays it a little bit. I don't want to go quite black. Then on the other side, I'm going to use white and a little bit of burnt umber, so I get a kind of a lighter, warm tan. I might even stick just a touch of yellow ochre in there too, just to warm it up a little bit more. So let me show you what this brush looks like. It's dark on one side, dark chocolate brown. On the other side, kind of a golden. And then I want to remember where my light's coming from. It's coming from this side, and holding the brush on the very tip of it, I'm going to pull down, come right on down, and if I'm lucky, I get both colors to come off. If they don't, I can reload the brush, maybe hit it just a little bit more on this side so I can see a little more of that dark. And I love the fact that trees are rough, so taking the tip of the brush, I'll just kind of soften that a little bit and make it look rough. Even a little bit of dark in there would look good. Kind of makes it look like the bark on the tree. And I'll only do this on this one tree so I don't bark up the wrong tree. There'd be a cast shadow here on the ground, so I'm going to put that in too. Just kind of right into the grass. It's kind of that same grass stroke. I just want it to look a little darker. There might be a few spaces along here where I might just do a little bit of dark. Now again, I'm going to double load. This time I'm going to take the brown with the phthalo blue and make it an extremely dark color on one side. On the other side, I'm going to use yellow and green. So I'm getting a really dark body tone and body shadow all on the same brush. Let me show you. See the dark color, it's almost a kind of a blue-brown, and on this side, it's kind of a yellow-green. With the light up and the dark down, I'm going to put in pine trees. And I like to follow kind of a zigzag pattern. No tree looks like a ladder. So if you kind of, using that corner of the brush, kind of press with that light side up, let that come out, you'll get a tree that's more natural looking, not so even. Right on down into here. Maybe do a little smaller bit right up in there. You've got a nice tree. I think the last thing I'm going to do is maybe add a few little wildflowers. I love flowers. So I'm going to take this bright red that I have, cadmium red light, and just kind of dot in a few little wood lilies right up here on the green grass. Some of them come up high and some down low. Get something too big, just pat on it and make a cluster of flowers, because that's really the way they grow. And that's the last step, except for signing my name, and I'll wait for it to dry and probably do that with a Sharpie. So I'm Susan Garden with Robert Garden Art, and just wanted to share this moment with you of fun with acrylic in Colorado.